All right, so week one is officially in the books, and now I want to come in and talk about this matchup between the Packers and Bears coming in on Sunday Night Football. We have the Packers coming off a terrible loss to the Minnesota Vikings. We have the Bears coming off a really, really big win, beating the San Francisco 49ers in week one. So I want to come in and give my thoughts on this game, what I think is going to happen, what the Packers need to do to come in and get back on track, get the win after starting off very sloppily in Minnesota in week one. So when we look at this Bears team coming off a victory to the San Francisco 49ers, many people did not see this coming. I thought the 49ers overall had a better team. I do think the weather conditions complicated things for both teams, but the Bears were able to come back and do enough to get this victory. I think if we look at the start of the game for the Bears, didn't start off hot. It was more so in the second half. They come in, play very well. And I think clearly the biggest focus for the Bears overall for the current time there with their new coaching situation is Justin Fields, who in this game overall, when you just look at his stat line, not like incredible, 8 for 17, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and an 85.7 rating. He started off pretty slow, started off 3 for 10 for 19 yards and 1 interception. Comes in later, starts cooking a little bit, goes 5 for 7, 102 yards with 2 touchdowns in the second half. So even though he started off pretty poorly, he comes in, he does enough to get the Bears a victory to pull off the upset and beat the San Francisco 49ers. So when we look at this matchup now coming into Sunday, the Packers just coming off a loss to the Vikings. I think that for the Packers defense, it's a much different matchup, of course, than the Minnesota Vikings. And when you compare Kirk Cousins to a Justin Fields, of course, young in his career, a much more athletic player, I would say. He has that running ability that the Packers will have to keep an eye on. When you're playing against Kirk Cousins, you don't really have to worry about him breaking crazy runs all the time, whereas Justin Fields may not be the passer, at least up to this point, I think, that Kirk Cousins is, but he still has that ability to escape the pocket, and you have to keep an eye on him because if he breaks away from the pocket, we need to have guys like Quay Walker, Devondre Campbell, some of these other guys tracking him down to make sure he doesn't, make this Packers defense look silly when he's able to escape from that pocket. So it's going to be interesting to see if this Packers defense can respond after a really poor showing in week one when we all assumed that this Packers defense would be elite. They did not show that in the first week of the season. I do think part of this has to do with the fact that, the Packers, it was week one. Obviously, every team could, make an excuse and say, well, we weren't really, we weren't gelling yet. But I do think that probably is part of it. The Packers didn't play many of their starters in the preseason, and I think that it probably takes a little bit of time to get back into the, swing of things. And so I'm hoping that we see this Packers defense rebound coming into this next game versus the Bears. And I definitely think this defense can't take this Bears offense lightly. I do think that they're much less talented overall than the Minnesota Vikings, but they have some heart. They showed it in week one, pulling off that upset. But we're going to need to see this Packers defense first off start off by getting some pressure on Justin Fields. If we take a look last week at the Bears and sort of how they matched up against the 49ers, they honestly did a pretty good job up front from their offensive line. Only allowed 8 pressures versus a very good 49ers pass rush. And I know the talk was last year of just how bad the Bears offensive line was, and Justin Fields was constantly just running around. They just were not protecting him whatsoever. But in this first game of the season for the Bears, their line actually played very well. So I do think that the Packers, they clearly have a very solid defensive line. We even saw it this first week against the Vikings. Even though the Vikings picked us apart when it came to passing the ball, the Packers were still able to get 20 pressures overall. Kenny Clark was a monster in the game, 6 pressures. Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith both had 5 pressures. Dean Lowry, 4 pressures. And so I do think the Packers will be able to get pressure on Justin Fields just because of the talent we have here at D-line with Rashawn Gary, with Preston Smith as well. But we definitely need to keep an eye on Justin Fields. We need to keep an eye on his rushing ability because in the past, like last year, I think Tyler Huntley of the Ravens, he was able to run the ball a lot on us, and he has that similar, rushing ability to a Justin Fields. So we definitely need to keep an eye on Justin Fields. And another thing, too, last week we looked at the Bears. They didn't run the ball very well, 37 rushes for only 99 yards, averaging 2.7 yards per carry. And I do think now with this Packers defense, I do think we'll have a much better rushing defense overall this season. Just when you look at the addition of Quay Walker, of course, he went down with an injury in that game, suffered a shoulder injury, but I do think hopefully he'll be back on Sunday. And with the addition of him and some other guys on the D-line, this Packers defense, I think as the weeks go by, they're going to get better and better as time goes on and they sort of mesh together. Hopefully it's this week, and I do think, coming off a loss that wasn't very pretty, the Packers are going to be pretty motivated to come in here in Lambeau Field on Sunday Night Football with everyone watching and I think they're going to respond well. I think that Justin Fields, he's still a young quarterback. He still makes some mistakes, and I think the Packers could have an opportunity to get a couple turnovers in this game. If we look at that game versus the 49ers, in the first half, he threw one pick. There was another one that was dropped. Obviously, it was pouring rain. It was wet. It was sloppy out there on the field, but I still think that Fields is probably going to give, there may be a few opportunities for the Packers to win the turnover battle with Fields putting the ball in harm's way, potentially. And I think if we look at the game last week, one of the reasons the Packers did lose was just the fact that we didn't win the turnover battle. Rodgers throws an interception, fumbles the ball. The Packers defense didn't force any turnovers. So, of course, when you don't win the turnover battle, it's going to be much harder to win that game. So we'll see if the Packers defense can get pressure, force Justin Fields to make some bad decisions, hopefully, for this Packers defense. Now moving on to the offensive side of the ball for the Packers coming in here, facing off against Chicago. The biggest problem, one of the biggest problems, there are probably two overall problems for the Packers offense in week one. First off, the offensive line. It starts off without having Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins, left tackle and right tackle, who we don't know if they'll even be here or if they'll be able to play in week two. We can cross our fingers and hope. I just don't know if it's going to happen. We saw the right side of the line do very poorly. Jake Hansen, a right guard, was getting pushed around all game. I think he allowed 4 pressures, which was the highest for the Packers offensive line. Royce Newman at right tackle allowed some pressures as well. And I do think the Vikings clearly have a very good pass rush. They showed that with Za'Darius Smith, getting a sack on Rodgers. Danielle Hunter also getting pressure on Aaron Rodgers as well. We'll see if they can hold up against the Bears pass rush. I don't think the Bears pass rush is quite as good as the Vikings. They still do have some talent there, especially take a look at that game for the Bears. Rookie Dominique Robinson, 5th round draft pick, had 2 sacks and 3 pressures on just 27 snaps. They also have Robert Quinn up there up front. So we're going to see if this Packers offensive line can get things together now coming into week 2, not allow Aaron Rodgers to get hit quite as much as he was last week. Hopefully Bakhtiari or Jenkins will be back. We'll see there. Also, John Runyon dealing with a concussion, and so Zach Tom could get some more playing time. Matt LaFleur even said that today as well. So we'll see if they can hold up on the O-line. And then, of course, the biggest topic of discussion has been these receivers, these young receivers especially. Christian Watson drops the first pass of the game. They don't produce too much, and Rodgers has said, we have to be patient with these guys. And we knew we would have to be patient when you have 2 young players coming in and having no experience and really no, playing time in the NFL. So at least now they have that first game behind them, and I really do expect them to play better coming into Sunday against the Bears, who had a very strong defensive performance against the 49ers and Trey Lance, only holding them to a total of 10 points. And so I do think for this Packers offense right now, we're sort of in like wait and see mode, waiting and seeing how long it's going to take for these rookies to, be able to produce a little bit on offense. The other thing is Allen Lazard could be back this week, which I think will be a big boost for this Packers offense, who needs just some more experience here on the offensive side of the ball. Sammy Watkins and Randall Cobb both didn't do much on Sunday versus the Minnesota Vikings. It was just a sloppy game overall. We saw the Packers start off like this last year as well. They responded well coming in, winning the next 7 games, so hopefully that happens once again. One thing to watch out for this week is I do feel like the Packers, based on Matt LaFleur talking about them needing to get the ball in the hands of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon more, where those 2 running backs are, a strong suit of this offense. I do think they'll run the ball more. And if we take a look at the game for the Bears and 49ers, the 49ers were pretty successful rushing the ball. They had 176 yards, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. So I think when we come into this game, start off running the ball, get Aaron Jones, get A.J. Dillon going, because when they were running the ball, the Packers averaged 6.2 yards per carry in week 1. So we definitely need to do more of that, sort of open up the play action, the pass, and hopefully these rookies can, have those jitters out of the way, be ready to come in and do some damage here against the Bears. But I do think the Bears have a solid defense, better than I thought they would be, at least in their first week 1 performance. The receivers on the 49ers only had 7 receptions for 70 yards, so a very dominant showing from the Bears. I do think, though, at some point this Packers offense is going to get things going a little bit, just because when you have Aaron Rodgers, he's gonna start making plays, and I think that if this O-line can hold up and not allow Rodgers to get smacked around all game, I do think the Packers can come in here and get some points and sort of rebound from the first loss of the season after getting smoked by the Minnesota Vikings. So the Packers can't take the Bears lightly. They're coming off 1-0. Their Packers are 0-1. If the Packers lose this game, it's going to be very concerning. If we start off 0-2 and the Bears start off 2-0, there will be a lot more things to clean up at that point. But hopefully Sunday night, in Lambeau Field. I have high hopes and high expectations for the way the Packers are going to respond in this game. So we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Those are my thoughts for today. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Twitter, Luke_Beller. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.